Imagine an AI world where characters stay the same, consistent.
No more shifting faces, no more broken immersion. This is the future of AI.
This is the future of AI storytelling, and it changes everything.
Think about it. AI-generated actors and actresses. It's like directing a real cast.
Inconsistent AI generations are over. Now, your characters are persistent, just like in Hollywood.
The impact? More engaging content and AI-generated films that finally feel real.
This is a revolution in AI filmmaking, and you're seeing it happen right now.
This changes how we create, how we tell stories, how we experience AI content.
And the best part? The technology is ready. The future of AI video starts now.
Hey everybody, the Artificial Trainer here. I'm back with another video for you all. This time it's going to be about consistent characters, if you couldn't tell from the intro video there. So before we get started, I want to shout out Mickmumpitz. If you don't already follow him, which I'm sure most of you do because way more subscribers than me, but if you don't, go check him out. Check his Patreon out. This video is based around the work that he did. I just made some modifications to the workflow to make it run faster and also to get it to run on 24 gigabytes because it wasn't running on that for me. So I made some modifications. So we'll jump right in. We'll head over to look at our pod here. All right, so before we jump into the pod settings, I want to let you know if you're on Windows, obviously the installation is different for you, but you can head right over to the workflow sections and just take a look at the workflows. If you're on Linux and you want to, install a version of ComfyUI where you can just test this out, then you can use these install scripts. Or if you're on RunPod, Avast AI, or whatever, then you can almost use directly what I'm about to show you to set up the environment. So the pod requirements here, we're running CUDA 12.4, 20 gigabytes of container disk, 120 gigabytes of volume disk. We're exposing port 8888 and port 3000, and that should get you what you need to run the install script. All right, so let's connect here and go to the Jupyter Lab. Okay, so now that we have our fresh Jupyter Lab here, first thing we're going to do is go to my Patreon and install the and download the install script. So drag that over into your workspace. I'm just going to rename it. I had downloaded it before, so now we all have the same name. And then open up a terminal. Actually, before we open a terminal, let's take a look at the install script. There's a couple of things we need to change. All right, so how this works, the top here installs ComfyUI for us. The next section, all of this will install the custom nodes. Down here, we're installing models. And then down here are some like Python library configurations that need to be updated for the current state of ComfyUI. Okay, so before we can run this, there's a couple things we need to change. First thing, we need to get a Civet AI token. So for that, you'll need to head over to Civet AI, log in. I'm logged in under my account. Go to account settings, and then scroll down to add an API key. All right, so name it whatever you want. You could call it, concar. And then when you hit save, it'll give you a random string of letters and numbers, something long like this. When you get that API key, copy that, head back to Jupyter Lab, highlight your CV token, and then replace it with that API key. Okay, so that'll replace it everywhere that's necessary, and it'll allow you to download Civet AI models very fast using ARIA 2C. Okay, we need to do the same thing with Hugging Face token. So head over to Hugging Face. If you have not already accepted the license terms for Flux One Dev, do that. there'll be a little drop down here for Flux One Dev that you can accept. If you want to use Fluxional, you can go download Fluxional. You'll just have to change the model in my workflow. So after you've accepted access to the model when you're signed in, head over, click your profile here and go to Access Tokens. Then create a new token and create a read token. So name it anything, same thing, we call it con car. And then when you hit create token, it's going to give you a random generated sequence of characters. So copy that random sequence when you get it, and then replace that in here. Okay, so after you do that, you should be all set to run it. I am gonna, in the background here, go put in my real API tokens, and then I'll show you how to run it to get started. Okay, so we have our API keys updated in our install script, and now we're just gonna run the install script. So bash concar install.sh, and this will install Comfy UI. It'll install all of the models, all of the custom nodes needed, and then it will run Comfy UI on port 3000 so we can access it. All right, so Comfy UI and all custom nodes are now installed. So let's head back and let's open up Comfy UI. All right, so before we go through the workflow, I want to give a quick shout out for the Discord. There's been a lot of the members of the community have jumped in there, and we've been giving tech support to people who need it. There's been new models posted when people see new models. If there's workflows that people are having trouble with or need a specific node set for that they don't know if it exists, all of that's been discussed in there. So if you're looking for a great AI community to join, I encourage you to join the Artificial Discord. Okay, so let's jump into the workflow here. So the first thing I want to mention is these Sage Attention nodes. So if you're on Windows and you don't have WSL2 running, or if you didn't figure out how to install Sage Attention, bypass these nodes. It's not going to work for you. The other thing is this wave speed node is not installable through the Comfy UI manager. You have to do the install manually. So you can disable this, but this does speed up inference like 40% or something crazy like that. So I would encourage you to learn how to install that on Windows if or on Linux if you just jump straight to the workflow. Okay, and then for the models, if you ran my install script, you will already have all of these models installed exactly like needed. Otherwise, Mickmumpitz, again, shout out. He put instructions on here for where to download all of the models needed for this workflow. And this workflow can be found on my Patreon. So this Mickmumpitz revised, that is this workflow. Okay. So one last thing before we go, before we run it, if you are running into some out of memory issues, you can change this wait type to FP8 or FP8 fast. I believe FP8 fast only works on the 40 or the 4000 series of NVIDIA cards. But both of them will reduce the amount of VRAM needed to run here. Okay, so let's talk about how the workflow works. So theoretically, you should be able to turn all of these on and run the workflow, but I have not had good luck with that. So instead, what I do is I generate I generate a character. So I generate a character first, and then I go back and I do the multi-view. All right, so first thing we need is a prompt here. I like to use an iPhone photo of, I think that gives good realism. And then let's generate our character. So let's say of a model with a tight-fitting t-shirt and skinny jeans on. I like to do tight-fitting because then it learns the body type of the character and it makes it easier when you're changing clothes and things like that. If they have baggy clothes on, then the model doesn't really understand what their body looks like, and then when you have different clothes, it's not going to give you good, consistent generations or outputs. Okay, and then the other thing is we need this T-pose sheet. This is also from Mickmumpitz. Head over to my Patreon, and I have a copy of it there. And drag that in to the load image here. Okay, so that should be everything for us to start to generate some characters. So let's just generate one and see what the output is. All right, so this is a pretty good generation. I think I'm going to roll with this one, and we will see how it turns out. All right, so let's download this image. So save image. And then we're going to do a quick SD upscale on this. So download the SD upscale workflow from my Patreon and drag that in here. All right, and then let's connect up. So this allows you, if you want to generate, like 6 characters at a time, you can put all 6 characters that you generated in a folder and then run that through this, or you can just upload a single image at a time, which is what we'll do here. All right, so drag your image in. And then sorry, there's one more thing. I actually have to update this workflow to resize the image. It should be updated by the time you're watching this video, but if it's not, just add in this resize node, and then we're going to do 1024 by 1024 and Lonzos. This just helps out with the VRAM when we're running the larger workflow that we're going to do here in a second. All right, so let's run that. All right, so there's our upscaled image. You can see it's much clearer after the upscale. So this will just help when we're doing the multi-view generations. The better the quality we can get, the better our output's going to be. All right, so let's save that upscaled image. And let's head back to the Mickmumpitz workflow. All right, so now that we have our image already generated, let's turn the character generation off, and we're going to turn the rest of the nodes on. And then we'll change the name to consist. This is just the character name. We'll call him Con Charlie. Consistent Charlie. Okay. And then we want to load an image in. Okay, and then we're going to get this node here. If we were trying to generate the whole thing at once, we would put a 1 in, but we are not. We're using an input image. So we have a 2 in here, and then we are good to run this. So just hit execute. All right, so our generation here finished. And this is what our consistent character looks like. Pretty solid. Mickmumpitz absolutely crushed this workflow. So let's take a look at a couple of the options that we could have changed here. One of the things that I don't love is this camera angle for the IC light in the emotion generator. So what we can do is we can adjust which image is being used in this node here. So I think I'm going to go for this first image just because it's the clearest image of his face. So that corresponds to image 1. And then because all of the seeds are the same, it's only going to regenerate the icy light and the emotions part of this, which is nice. Okay, so you can see our icy light and our emotions were generated with that front-facing view instead now. Okay, so that is it for getting our data set. Next, we are going to move into how to use these to train a LoRA. So if we go back to Workspace, into our Outputs folder, I'm going to grab our, I'm going to clean this up real quick. So I'm going to delete everything that's from an hour ago. Okay, and then the other thing is I have 2 sets of these character sheets and emotions because we changed which reference image we wanted to use, so I'm just going to delete the old set that I don't care about. Okay, and now if you are on RunPod or using Jupyter Notebook, to download it, you right-click on this output folder and you download the current folder as an archive. If you're on Windows or anything else, you just need to find a way to get these into their own folder. Okay, so I'm going to download these and put them into a folder. All right, and now let's take a look at these. All right, so we have like 20 something images here. We want to get that down to about probably 12 images. All right, so first thing, we don't want these character sheets because the LoRA just wants a single subject. It's going to be confused by this character sheet. So let's delete that. Okay, and then let's take a look at the rest of these. All right, so this image right here isn't very good. Let's delete that. I don't really like this one. And I know that these are a bit blurry. If you wanted to, you can do another SD upscale pass, which will help clean up the blurriness, and it also would probably give you a better final result as well. So if you do another SD upscale pass with that workflow, with this workflow, this time you can use the folder upload option like this, and then just hit enter for however many images you have to upscale. And I would also turn the denoise down to maybe like 0.23 or something to make sure that you maintain good likeness. Okay, and then the reason that we're using these like kind of funny emotions is that we want some variability in our LoRA, right? We don't want to just have the same face in everyone, because then you'll get the same face in your LoRA when you use it for generation every time. All right, I usually like to delete these side view ones because the hand is messed up. All right, so that gives us 16. I need to pare it down a little bit more. Can usually delete one of these lighting ones. This one gives pretty similar lighting as our base images. Let's delete this one because it's not great likeness. All right, so that leaves us with 14. 14 is pretty good. So I also left a Python script in here. Python script isn't necessary, but it just speeds up a lot of work for you, because I'm going to rename all of these images with a Python script, and then I'm also going to add a text file for all the images as well, so it just cuts out a ton of the work. All right, so all we need to do is change this one base name variable. I'm going to change it to it doesn't have to be your LoRA name, but I'm going to change it to the LoRA name. So I'm going to call it con car. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is run this, and then I'll show you what you get. Okay, so we get all 14 images with a caption with the LoRA name in it. All right. So this just simplifies a step for me. It's not necessary, and once we get the LoRA software going, I will show you how you would do this without the text files too. Okay, so let's go back to RunPod. If you already have a preferred LoRA generator, you don't have to do this step. I'm going to show how to install AI-Toolkit on RunPod with an install script that I've created. But if you already have like Koya or OneTrainer or something like that set up, feel free to use that. All we're going to do now is train a LoRA. All right, so let's go back here to my Patreon and grab this install AI-Toolkit.sh file and drop that in our workspace. Okay, and then if you open this up, there is this, you need that Hugging Face token again. So go grab that from your other install script. I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. Just before you run this, head back and edit the pod. Bump the container disk up to 50. It's going to take a second to regenerate the pod, but it's not going to break anything on us. Okay, so our pod is back up. Okay, so our pod is back up. All we have left to do is run the AI-Toolkit install script. And once that is done, I will meet you back here. Okay, so now AI-Toolkit is installed. If you're using a different LoRA creator, open that up now. If you're using AI-Toolkit, click on this gradio.live link here. Okay, so while those are uploading, let's name our LoRA. I usually just name the LoRA and the trigger word the same thing. I just think it's just easier to remember that way. As far as captioning goes, I'm just using the trigger word. You can create more in-depth captions with forints too if you want, but for simplicity here, I'm just using the trigger word. We could create an entire video talking about LoRA captioning. We want to go to advanced options. We're going to do 4,000 steps. The learning rate of 0.0004 is good. And we're going to do a 32 rank LoRA. If you don't have 24 gigabytes, you can do a 16 rank. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can fit that on maybe 16 gigabytes. You might need all the way up to 20. And then we're going to train it on the dev model. That's why we put in our Hugging Face token. Make sure you click this Use Advanced More Options. We are going to modify the sample I want to sample every 250. We'll just do 20 sample steps. I want to save every 250. So this is going to give us an epoch every 250 steps. And then I want to save 16 of these. So we're going to save as many as possible. Okay. Last thing we want to do is we want to create some prompts with our trigger words. So I'm going to say Concar sitting at a table drinking coffee. Concar running through the woods on a trail, and then we'll say I don't know, it could be whatever you want. Concar, we'll say giving a presentation on stage. Okay, so make sure you have this using more advanced options. Check if you're in AI-Toolkit, and then we will train it up. All right, so this training, I think total runtime is around 3 hours. I'm only going to train this for maybe like 30 to 45 minutes, just because I don't want to train it for 3 hours. I'm not going to be using this in my day-to-day. So I just want to train it for long enough to show you that it does give you likeness, it does give you a consistent character, and then that'll conclude this video. So I'll be back in about 45 minutes to give you an update on what we're looking for, and I'll see you then. Okay, so I ran this for about 30 minutes. We got 750 steps completed. That should be enough for us to analyze this LoRA. If you were doing this on your own, like I said earlier, you should let this run all the way to the end of the 4,000 steps so that you can analyze which one gives you the best results from a larger sample size. Okay, so to look at the LoRAs, we go to the output folder, your trigger word, and then we're going to take a look at the samples. So let's take a look at the latest sample here. So we have an image here of a person, and it's actually pretty solid likeness here, right? So same hairstyle, very similar face. It's not going to be perfect, right? Because I stopped my training early, but it's pretty good. Let's look at this next one. Similar thing here. The face isn't perfect, but it got the hairstyle right, which is pretty good for only 750 steps. If we take a look at the one before it, actually this one, it looks like it got the hairstyle pretty good, which is impressive for only having trained this for about 30 minutes. Yeah, here's one from the data set. Right, it almost got the hairstyle perfectly the same. Okay, so that's one way to test these out. The other way is to actually put these into CompUI and test them out. So we essentially need to copy these over to the CompUI LoRAs folder. To do that, we navigate to this folder. Let's copy this path. And then navigate over to that folder. And then we're going to use the copy command. If you're on Windows, you can just copy paste. So copy into the /workspace /CompUI /models /LoRAs folder. All right, so let's make sure that copied okay. Yep, so there we go. There are our LoRAs. And now we need to open up CompUI. So we killed it earlier in order to be able to run this. So let's run it again. However you do that, I'm going to do it how we do it in Linux. But if you're using Windows, start it up however you typically start it up. Okay, Python main.py -listen -port 3000. All right, so it's started. let's head back to, I'm going to head back to our pod and open up port 3000 again. And there we have Comfy UI. All right, so if you head over to my Patreon, there is a Flux image gen with LoRA workflow that you can download. It's just a basic Flux workflow. If you have a different one you'd rather use, go ahead. But this does include wave speed and sage attention. If you're on Windows, sage attention most likely won't work unless you've figured the install out. And then this wave speed node, you're not going to find it in the missing custom nodes. You have to Google search it and find the GitHub and manually install it. Okay, for our diffusion model, you can use fast if you have a 4000 series card, or use the FP8, or even use the FP16 default version. And the other thing is you can use this smaller clip if you're struggling for space as well. I'm going to use the fast just for faster generations. And then I'm going to use, we're going to test out the latest LoRA. All right, so high quality photograph of our trigger word. Standing in an office wearing a suit. All right, so it's not the closest at this point. It looks like this is undertrained, but we can take a look at an image from our data set in a similar pose. And it's close, right? But it's not perfect. And that comes from us only training for 750 steps. If we look at this image, similar, right? Like we get very similar hairstyles. The face is almost the same, but it could have used a little more training time. But the cool thing that we do like to see is the outfit changed with no problem. Okay, let's try a different LoRA. Just select the different one from the LoRA loader. All right, and this one actually gives us pretty good likeness to our original image. It might be lucky, or maybe this LoRA actually is better after 500 steps than it was at 750 steps. The training kind of bounces back and forth between good and bad. It fluctuates, so sometimes a later training is not always the better epoch. Okay, so that is it for this tutorial. If you have questions, you run into technical difficulties, leave them down in the comments. Even better, if you're having technical difficulties, join Discord. There's more than just me helping out with tech support in there. So if you head there, you'll get some good answers. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps, and I will talk to you again next time.